30,000 years ago, someone carried a piece of volcanic glass across open ocean. Chemical fingerprinting of obsidian flakes found at Paleolithic sites on Honshu matched them to a volcanic source on Kozushima, a small island in the Izu chain, separated from the nearest coast by deep water with no land bridge connection at any point during the Pleistocene. Separately, archaeological sites across the Ryukyu Islands, Okinawa, Yonaguni, the entire arc stretching toward Taiwan, contain human remains and stone tools dating back 35,000 years. Islands that could only be reached by crossing 100 kilometers or more of open sea, through a current that moves faster than you can paddle. Those artifacts are evidence of the same thing: deliberate ocean crossings in the late Paleolithic. No metal, no sail, no compass, no written language. And in 2019, a team of Japanese scientists tried to replicate one of those crossings using only Stone Age materials. Most of their early test voyages failed before the craft even cleared the coast. Stand on the southern tip of what will become Kagoshima Prefecture, 30,000 years ago. The air is cooler than modern subtropical Japan, perhaps 5 to 7 degrees lower in mean annual temperature, based on multiple paleoclimate proxies including pollen records and marine sediment cores from the region. The forest behind you is a mix of conifers and cool temperate deciduous trees, nothing like the subtropical vegetation of modern Kagoshima. The shoreline is rocky, dropped far below today's waterline. You can see a faint silhouette on the horizon to the south, Yakushima, maybe Tanegashima, but beyond that, nothing, just ocean. Sea levels sit approximately 70 to 90 meters lower than today. That reshapes coastlines dramatically, but it does not create land bridges between the Ryukyu Islands and mainland Asia. Paleogeographic modeling by Kaifu's team at the University of Tokyo confirms this. Every route into the Ryukyu arc required at least one open water crossing of 100 kilometers or more, with no visible land on the other side. The Kuroshio Current is already there, a massive river of warm Pacific water flowing northeast at speeds often reaching 1.5 to 2.0 meters per second. To reach the central Ryukyus, you need to cross that current laterally, probably in some form of wooden watercraft, possibly a dugout, shaped with stone tools. And yet the archaeological record is unambiguous. Sites on Okinawa, Yamashita-cho Cave, Sakatari Cave, Minatogawa, contain human remains and stone tools dating from approximately 35,000 to 18,000 years ago, based on dates published by the National Museum of Nature and Science. People got there, repeatedly, over thousands of years. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a Paleolithic crew could cross 200 kilometers of open ocean in a hand-carved log. The physics of the boat, the logic of the navigation, and the human system that made it repeatable. The single most dramatic moment in this story, the point where the 2019 experimental crew nearly failed, comes later. The problem is not distance. Polynesians would later cross thousands of kilometers of Pacific. The problem is the Kuroshio. The Kuroshio Current is the Pacific's western boundary current, the oceanic equivalent of a jet stream. It moves roughly 25 million cubic meters of water per second past the Ryukyu Arc, according to data from the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology. That is over 100 times the flow of the Amazon River. It runs northeast, and any craft launched from the coast of Kyushu or Taiwan gets caught in it like a leaf in a gutter. Here is why that matters for a paddled canoe. A strong recreational kayaker sustains about 1.0 to 1.3 meters per second in calm water. A competitive paddler can maintain around 1.5 meters per second. The Kuroshio flows at 1.0 to 1.5 meters per second on average, with bursts exceeding 2.0 meters per second. You are paddling at roughly the same speed as the current trying to sweep you sideways. Every minute of crossing, the current pushes you laterally. A 200-kilometer crossing at paddling speed takes approximately 40 to 55 hours of continuous effort. In that time, the Kuroshio can displace you 100 kilometers or more to the northeast, past every target island, into open Pacific. There is no GPS correction, no engine, no sail to catch a favorable wind angle. You cannot see your destination for most of the crossing. At night, with overcast skies, you cannot see stars. The ocean's swell masks the horizon. Your only instruments are your arms and whatever directional cues you can read from waves, wind, and the sun. Modern ocean rowers with satellite navigation, carbon fiber oars, and support boats still struggle with Kuroshio crossings, and yet Paleolithic people with bodies no stronger than ours made it, repeatedly, over millennia, and they solved it. A wrong hull design doesn't mean a slow crossing. It means a crossing that fails before the first island appears. The Kuroshio gives you one shot, enough speed to maintain net forward progress against a current moving 1.0 to 1.5 meters per second. Fall below that threshold and you drift northeast, past every target, into open Pacific. No rescue, no second attempt. The hull is not an engineering preference. it is a survival condition. Between 2016 and 2019, a team led by Yusuke Kaifu at the National Museum of Nature and Science ran a project to reenact a Paleolithic ocean voyage. The goal? Build a craft using only Paleolithic available materials and tools, and paddle it from Taiwan to Yonaguni Island, a distance of roughly 205 kilometers across open ocean, directly through the Kuroshio. They tested 3 hull types: grass bundle rafts, bamboo rafts, and a dugout canoe carved from a single large log. The grass raft failed immediately. Waterlogging destroyed structural integrity within hours. The bamboo raft performed better, but could not maintain speed against the current. Too draggy, too slow, too unstable in beam seas. Only the dugout canoe, on the final attempt in July 2019, completed the crossing. Here is why. And the physics matters. A dugout canoe is a displacement hull. It sits in the water rather than on top of it, and its speed is governed by hull speed, a function of waterline length. The theoretical hull speed of a displacement vessel is calculated as 1.34 times the square root of the waterline length in feet. The dugout Kaifu's team built was approximately 7.6 meters long. That gives a hull speed of roughly 6.7 knots, or about 3.4 meters per second. In practice, with 5 paddlers working in rotation, they sustained roughly 2 to 3 knots over extended periods. That is barely faster than the Kuroshio. The margin is razor thin, 1 knot of net forward progress, over 200 kilometers, for over 40 hours. The hull shape matters more than you would expect. A log canoe carved with stone tools does not look like a modern kayak. It is heavier, approximately 400 kilograms, but it has specific hydrodynamic properties that help in current crossings. The beam-to-length ratio of the reconstructed canoe was roughly 1 to 10, narrow enough to reduce drag, wide enough to resist capsize in beam seas. The thick hull walls, left deliberately heavy, lowered the center of gravity below the waterline. This is the same principle that makes a ballasted sailboat self-righting. Mass below the waterline acts as a pendulum, pulling the boat back to vertical when a wave rolls it. The tools used to build this hull were not crude. Unusually early examples of polished or edge-ground stone tools have been found in late Paleolithic contexts in Japan and Australia, a notably precocious development compared to most of the world where polished stone is a Neolithic marker. Experimental archaeology has demonstrated that a skilled user with a groundstone adze can remove wood at a rate approaching that of steel tools. Slower, yes, but precise. A single large trunk could be hollowed into a functional hull in approximately 2 to 3 weeks of sustained work by a team of 4. The carving geometry is not random. Your dugout builders across the Pacific thinned the hull walls to a consistent thickness, then used controlled fire to char and scrape the interior. Fire hardening the wood does 2 things. It removes moisture from the surface grain, increasing compressive strength, and it creates a thin carbonized layer that resists waterlogging. A fire-hardened hull absorbs water significantly more slowly than untreated wood. The choice of tree species was not arbitrary either. The log Kaifu's team used had a density of approximately 350 kilograms per cubic meter, making it among the lightest available softwoods in the region. It was also naturally rich in terpenoid compounds with antifungal and antibacterial properties. A canoe made from this wood resists rot in warm saltwater far longer than one made from denser hardwoods like oak or teak. Paleolithic builders almost certainly selected for this property through generations of trial and observation. The same wood that smelled strongest and lasted longest became the preferred hull material. So the first mechanism is the boat itself, a displacement hull with a low center of gravity, carved from rot-resistant softwood, fire-hardened against waterlogging, shaped to a beam ratio that balances drag against stability. Every element of the design addresses a specific physical constraint of the Kuroshio crossing. But this is only the first mechanism. The second is stranger, because it has nothing to do with the boat. The Kaifu team's final successful crossing took place on July 7th through 9th, 2019. 5 paddlers departed Taitung, Taiwan at dawn and arrived at Yonaguni Island approximately 45 hours later. The project rules prohibited any modern navigation instruments. No compass, no watch, no GPS. The only reference points available were celestial bodies, ocean swells, and wind. Here is what made the navigation problem nearly unsolvable. For the first and last portions of the crossing, land is visible, but for roughly 100 kilometers in the middle, a stretch lasting 20 or more hours, no land is visible in any direction. And for a significant portion of that window, it is nighttime. The crew navigated using techniques analogous to traditional Polynesian and Micronesian wayfinding. The method works like this. You identify a star near the horizon at a known bearing, say a star rising due east. You paddle toward it. As it climbs above roughly 15 degrees of altitude, it becomes useless as a directional marker because its azimuth shifts. So you switch to the next star rising behind it in the same bearing. You chain stars across the sky all night. During daylight, the crew use the sun's arc and the angle of prevailing ocean swells. The Kuroshio generates a consistent swell pattern that runs northeast. If you can feel the swell direction on the hull, which experienced paddlers can, you have a rough compass even with overcast skies. The most remarkable finding was how quickly the crew internalized swell-based orientation. Within the first 6 hours of the crossing, the steersman could maintain a heading within roughly 10 to 15 degrees of target using swell angle alone, based on GPS track data recorded by the support vessel. There is a deeper point here. This navigation system does not require genius. It requires exposure. A person who grows up on the coast, who paddles daily from childhood, who watches the stars every clear night for 20 years, accumulates a body of directional knowledge that feels like instinct, but is actually empirical data encoded in muscle memory and habit. The crossing was not a feat of superhuman ability. It was a feat of cultural knowledge, transmitted across generations, refined by repetition, and tested against the most unforgiving laboratory on Earth, the open Pacific. The Kuroshio itself carries a navigational clue. Its warm water generates visible sea surface temperature gradients. You can sometimes see the boundary as a color change from dark blue to lighter teal. Modern fishermen in the Ryukyus still use this visual cue to locate the current's edge. No crossing like this happens in isolation. A 45-hour paddle through the Kuroshio requires more than a boat and a star compass. It requires a system, logistical, social, and nutritional, built over generations. Start with the physical demands. 5 paddlers, 45 hours. 3 paddling, 2 resting, rotating through the night. Each crew member paddles roughly 27 hours total. Each paddler burns somewhere between 13,000 and 19,000 kilocalories during the crossing. That is 6 to 9 days of normal caloric intake, compressed into 2 days. Paleolithic crews likely carried dried fish, shellfish, tubers, fresh water in animal skin or bamboo containers. The archaeological record at Sakatari Cave on Okinawa revealed evidence of freshwater crab processing and seasonal nut harvesting, dating to approximately 23,000 years ago. Exactly the kind of calorie-dense, storable foods that would sustain an ocean crossing. The crew size matters for a reason beyond labor. 5 paddlers is not arbitrary. Fewer than 4 could not maintain headway against the Kuroshio. More than 6 made the dugout dangerously low in the water. 5 was the functional optimum for a 7.6-meter hull, enough muscle to maintain speed, with enough freeboard to survive moderate seas. The social organization behind these crossings leaves traces in the archaeological record. The Ryukyu Paleolithic sites show a pattern. Tool assemblages that include obsidian, shell tools from deep water species, and faunal remains indicating exploitation of marine resources well beyond the reef. This is not a coastal scavenging culture. This is a maritime culture, people whose identity and economy were organized around the sea. Traditional maritime societies transmit navigational knowledge through structured apprenticeship systems lasting 15 to 20 years. Young navigators learn by crewing on shorter inter-island voyages, gradually building the observational database, star positions, swell patterns, bird flight paths, cloud formations over distant islands that enables open ocean crossings. There is no reason to assume Paleolithic Ryukyu seafarers operated differently. Human occupation of these islands over 15,000 years implies a stable, self-reproducing knowledge system. The community that sends a crew across the Kuroshio does not just build a boat. It feeds the builders, trains the navigators, selects the tree, cures the wood, processes the provisions, tracks the seasonal weather window. The brief period in early summer when the Kuroshio weakens slightly and the typhoon season has not yet begun, Kaifu selected his July crossing window based on exactly this meteorological pattern. Paleolithic crews almost certainly did the same, using generations of accumulated seasonal observation. This was not an accident. This was an institution. Let us put the Paleolithic dugout next to its modern equivalents and measure 3 things: speed, durability, and navigational accuracy. Speed. A modern ocean racing kayak, carbon fiber, 6.5 meters, single paddler, sustains roughly 4 to 5 knots in calm water over extended periods. A modern ocean rowing boat, the kind used in transatlantic races, sustains 2 to 3 knots over multi-day crossings. The Kaifu dugout sustained 2 to 3 knots with a 5-person crew, in raw speed. The modern kayak is faster by a significant margin, but the modern ocean rowboat and the Paleolithic dugout are roughly equivalent. The dugout achieves comparable open ocean cruising speed to a purpose-built modern rowing vessel, without fiberglass, without engineered oarlocks, without a sliding seat. Durability. A fiberglass kayak has a functional lifespan of 10 to 20 years with proper storage. A carbon fiber hull is lighter, but more brittle. A single impact on a reef can crack it catastrophically. A fire-hardened softwood dugout, maintained and oiled, is harder to pin down on lifespan, but ethnographic records from the Tao people of Orchid Island indicate that their traditional plank-built canoes remain seaworthy for 15 to 25 years with annual maintenance. The dugout wins on repairability. A damaged section can be patched with fitted wood and sealed with tree resin. A cracked fiberglass hull requires industrial epoxy and often a professional repair shop. Navigational accuracy. A modern GPS unit provides position accuracy within 3 meters. A handheld marine compass gives bearing accuracy within 2 degrees. The Paleolithic star compass method maintained heading accuracy within 10 to 15 degrees over sustained periods, degrading to 20 to 30 degrees in overcast conditions. Modern instruments win decisively here, no ambiguity, but consider the failure mode. A GPS unit runs on batteries. Batteries die, salt water kills electronics. The star compass system has no components that can fail except the navigator's brain. And even a degraded heading of 20 to 30 degrees is sufficient to hit a target island chain stretching over 100 kilometers of latitude, as the Ryukyus do. The Paleolithic dugout is not better than modern technology. It is not worse. It solves a different problem with different constraints. And it solves it at a level of competence that engineers with fluid dynamics software would find remarkably close to optimal for the available materials. There is one metric where modern technology wins so completely that the comparison is almost unfair. Communication. A Paleolithic crew that gets swept past Yonaguni has no way to call for rescue. No EPIRB, no satellite phone, no flares. The 2019 Kaifu expedition had a modern support vessel trailing at distance for safety. Paleolithic crews had nothing. The cost of navigational error was not embarrassment or a news story. It was death. And that fact, the absolute final consequence of failure, is precisely what drove the extraordinary precision of the knowledge system. When failure kills, the culture learns fast or the culture disappears. A 30,000-year-old ocean crossing, reconstructed, verified, completed. And outside Japan, almost nobody knows it happened. The 2019 crossing received substantial coverage in Japanese media. NHK filmed a documentary. Kaifu published in academic journals. The project received funding from the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science. And yet, outside Japan and the narrow world of experimental archaeology, this story barely registered. The reason is partly structural. The narrative of human maritime history, particularly in Western contexts, tends to emphasize Polynesian voyaging and European age of sail exploration. The Paleolithic seafaring of the Western Pacific, among the earliest deliberate ocean crossings in human history, alongside the colonization of Australia over 65,000 years ago, often falls outside that framework. It does not fit neatly into an age of discovery narrative because it happened 25,000 years before any age that gets a name. That is not a gap in the record. That is a gap in the frame. Go back to that obsidian flake, a sharp piece of volcanic glass, 30,000 years old, found far from the volcano that produced it. Before this video, it was a curiosity, an artifact, a museum label, a line in a journal article. Now you see the system behind it. You see the softwood tree selected for its chemistry. You see the fire-hardened hull, shaped to a beam ratio that minimizes drag while resisting capsize. You see 5 paddlers burning up to 19,000 kilocalories each over 2 days, ferrying at 45 degrees into a current that moves 25 million cubic meters per second. You see a navigator chaining stars across a dark sky, feeling the Kuroshios swell on the hull with no instrument but their own spine. That flake is not evidence of a lucky accident. It is evidence of an engineering tradition, one that solved fluid dynamics, material science, celestial navigation, nutritional logistics, and crew coordination simultaneously, without writing any of it down. The knowledge lived in hands, in eyes, in the rhythms of a paddle stroke taught from parent to child for 1,000 generations. We measure innovation in patents filed and venture capital raised. These people measured it in arrivals. You either made landfall or you did not. 30,000 years later, the obsidian is still sharp. And the question it asks is not how did they do it. You know that now. The question is, what else have we forgotten was possible? That is not a gap in the record. That is a gap in the frame. Nippon Old Diaries. Next entry soon.